Alrighty. Hello. Good morning. It is, what day is it? It is Saturday, June 8th, and my eyes are a little bit foggy right now. It's kind of weird. I am spending this time trying to sort out some of my streaming, and I thought that I would just, do it on only YouTube because I'm actually trying to sort out some specific YouTube stuff. I recorded a video on setting boundaries in research administration, and I weirdly it only recorded like the first, and so I'm actually going to hit record here because I'm going to need this. It only recorded like the second half of it, like it's missing the first half. So I was like, you know what, I'll just do this recording now. So what my plan is to do this recording, and then I'm going to try some stuff, like sharing screens, blah blah, get it all set up so that I can go live stream a little bit more effectively. I love live streaming. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do. So anything that I can look up, that I can, and what's the word? It gives me the opportunity to share content or educate or learn or whatever using live streaming. I'm almost always gonna select that over, say, recording a video. It's really weird. And you know how like there's things in research administration that we like love, that we're just like, I love this, I'm obsessed with whatever XYZ thing is, and it's the thing that you do the most, because you're always finding reasons to do it, or you love it when it comes across your desk or whatever. Live streaming is that for me. um I don't know why. I think there's an energy. So even if there's nobody on, because I've been live streaming now for over a decade, and like back in the day, I remember when live streaming was first a brand new thing. Like nobody was really doing it, and I remember I would live stream sometimes to 0 people and sometimes to like hundreds of people. And obviously, having hundreds of people is a lot more energy because there's back and forth conversation, and it's like very exciting. Like it's a very different type of conversation than if you were live talking to just 2 or 3 people. Very different conversation. But I enjoy the whole spectrum, right? I enjoy being live when there's nobody on, and I enjoy being live when there are people on. And again, not sure why, but it's easier for me to get the content made. So I'm gonna start by let's talk about the boundaries video. So I recorded this boundaries video in February, and it was based on the content of boundary work that I have been doing with my clients and other research administrators over the past several years. And then um, the reason why it sort of came up as like a very big aspect of time management is that what I found was is that it didn't really matter how much I set boundaries or determined this is going to be my schedule or whatever it is that I was going to do. There were certain factors that were either in or out of my control that derailed my day anyway. So it was almost as if setting the boundaries was a futile exercise because they'd just be violated by the people who I was trying to set boundaries for. Like, here, don't sit outside my office and wait for me at 6 a.m., until I come into the office. So I talked to my wife, right? Because I was at this time, this was many, many years ago, before I had sort of understood that before I could expect other people to respect my boundaries, I had to respect and maintain my boundaries. And so I remember being in a job where I felt like, and this job, by the way, was the job that I was my boss. So I was running my own business. And I was constantly at the beck and call of my clients. I was constantly working. I was exhausted all the time, right? And the whole point of starting my own business was so that I would have freedom and be able to maintain my own schedule and not get overwhelmed and so on. But yet here I was, overwhelmed, exhausted, constantly working. And I said to my wife, I said, I think I'm just going to go back to corporate. I don't really feel like I'm getting what I was hoping for out of working for myself in terms of the control over my schedule and that kind of thing. And she said, it doesn't matter. What does it matter where you go? Right. And I was like, I don't understand what that means. And she said, I've known you now for, at this point, I think like a decade. And she said, wherever you go, you are the one who works really hard. So you'll set boundaries, but you're the one who then will violate your own boundaries and say, oh, I'll just take this call later on, or, oh, I'll just work after hours, even though I said I wasn't going to. So I understand why you want to go to another space, right? You think that, okay, if I just change jobs or change what it is that I'm doing, that's going to be what allows me to now have this time that I'm looking for. But she was like, over the years, we've seen that that's not the case. And it really made me think about um, how wherever I go, there I am. Okay. So that now is the beginning part for the boundaries video. The other thing I need to talk about is that originally this was going to be originally the boundaries video was going to be one video, me talking, here's the things that I've learned over the years, here's the resources, and so on and so forth. But so many things happened over the last few months that I actually decided to restructure it. And so we're just going to do a huge segment of boundaries within the within like the Commitment to Clock Out series. And each one will be shorter, probably about 10 minutes instead of like a 50-minute video. I'll have the 50-minute one too. But the reason why that's important is because there's also there's also something. There's something. Don't worry. There's also something. Oh, I posted in the Res Admin mailing list. And if you are not already a member of the Res Admin mailing list, here, let me actually, you know what? This will be a great opportunity for us to play around with this. Res Admin mailing list. I'm going to switch over now. Let's see if this works, okay? Check it out. Let's see if this works. Okay, I'm going to do share desktop. Okay, all right, so you've got the desktop shared. All right, we're there so far. Now I'm going to pick the window. There we go. Look at that. Okay, it's giant though. It's too giant. It's too giant. No one can tell what this is. Okay. All right, so this is, look at this link, healthresearch.org. That's where you're trying to go to. We're going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn too later. And we're making this smaller. Don't you worry, we're making this smaller. Okay, here we go. So close. Okay, there we go. Res Admin mailing list. Okay, so this is the Res Admin mailing list. If you are not already a member of the Res Admin mailing list, I cannot recommend it enough. It's an old school listserv. So if you've been around the internet long enough, then you've been on old school listservs, and you sign up for it. You click on subscribing to Res Admin listserv. There's a whole instruction manual down here that tells you, look, this is how you sign up. And then you start getting emails. There are really, really, really great job opportunities that get posted to this board. And then there's a lot of questions that get asked that are like really intricate, unique situations that is very exciting to hear from other RAs, how they have dealt with it in the past to get resources. So it's a really great listserv to be a part of if you're not already. So I made a post and I asked a question like, in terms of boundaries. And I said, you know, if you were to set boundaries, no, what did I say? I said, oh, you know what it was? It came because this person had made a post about, they had an email they had a signature in their email that basically said, I respond to emails. I work non-standard working hours, and so I'm going to respond at non-standard working hours, but don't feel like you have to respond during that time. And I thought that was an interesting way to state your boundaries so that people knew what to expect. And so I wrote in the Res Admin mailing list, and I said, this is a really great example of boundaries. Can you tell me how you set boundaries as research administrators? And I was doing this for an article that I was writing for NCURA magazine. And what ended up happening, though, was I got so much information that originally I was going to write the article as in, like, this is my opinion. What it ended up being was I had so much great information from the listserv that I ended up creating the article based off of what everyone else had said, and sort of I tied everything together, but it was based off of the context of the Res Admin listserv. And so now I'm, in addition to, here is what boundaries are, here's how you set them, here's how you deal with them when people don't respect your boundaries, so on and so forth. There's also going to be some added content related to setting boundaries as a research administrator that came from the listserv. So let's talk briefly about that as long as we're here. We may do that instead of LinkedIn. You know what? We'll do that when we get closer. We'll do that when we get closer to the what's it call it. Okay. So we're going to have, hold on, most of my allergies are like fucking crazy right now. So we're going to do this. Hold on. I'm hoping that did actually mute me blowing my nose. If not, I apologize. We're just going to have to deal with it. Okay, you know what else I didn't do? Okay, we're going to go back to blank just camera. Okay, we're going to do that. And then I'm going to look here because I want to see, I meant to check on YouTube to see if I was actually live. And, oh, look at that. Look at me. I'm totally live. I am totally live right now. Rock on. Okay, that's good. That's what I was hoping for, is that I'd totally be live. Okay. Ooh, and is it anybody other than me watching? Which is totally fine if nobody is, but I want to see what it looks like. Oh, it looks really cute. Okay, can I go backwards? I can go backwards. Great. Okay, so we are moving along on this. I love the way this looks. All right. So now that we've got that done, let's go back to this actually. Okay. And I want to move this a little bit. There you go. All right, that's better. Okay, now we go. Okay, let's do that. Perfect. There we go. I want to move it a little bit so that it's a little bit more. You know what's interesting is I follow this live streamer and he actually will deliberately put things like in like a really weird place, like here. So people are like, "Hey, you forgot your thing in the middle of your screen," and he's like, "Yeah, I totally do," because that's how he gets engagement, which is quite brilliant actually. But it's not really my thing, so I'm just gonna move this down where I want it to be. There you go. Okay, beautiful. All right, we got that beautiful. Okay. Alrighty. So that takes care. We sorted out the how to share your desktop. We sorted out the going live on YouTube so that I can now download this and put it at the beginning of my boundaries video. You know, I actually am thinking I may want to like, because I wanted to record this like, just because it's easier for me to do the work if I'm recording, if I'm live. But I'm wondering to myself if, yeah. Yeah. Okay. We're just going to move on from that. Okay. Next up then, I wanted to talk a little bit about LinkedIn because, all right, let's go to and scene. Okay. We're going to go in here. Blank, just camera. Perfect. Okay. I'm actually really loving this. The only thing I really want to have is a better transition between when I switch one scene to the next. Like right now, I'm doing the scene transfers and it's like, it's almost like a, you know, it's really like thud, you know, immediately my screen pops up one image, then another image. What I'd like is if there was like a wipe or like a wave or something. So I'll have to see if that's a thing that one can do. But yeah, so one of the things I wanted to, that we talked about at the, oh God, when was it? Region 1 meeting. So at the Region 1 meeting that we just had, one of the conversations that Sarah and I had in a discussion group was LinkedIn and how do you leverage LinkedIn as a research administrator? And one of the questions that popped up as part of this conversation, and I actually made some notes about this because this came up, these are really good questions related to how to use LinkedIn, because for a lot of us, this is to do today, LinkedIn for the research administrator. Okay. So the first question that a lot of people had was like, what do I need to use LinkedIn for? Like, why am I going to be on LinkedIn? And the reason why you need to be on LinkedIn is because you may not need a job now. And you may not need answers to questions now. But the problem for all of us is that when we need it, when I'm looking for a job, when I'm looking for an answer, at that point, it's too late for me to go and build my network because I need the information at this point. And in the old days, so say 80s, 90s, pre-LinkedIn, there was really very little way for us to engage with each other on a day-to-day basis or to connect or see each other that would allow us to leverage our network and build these relationships, because frankly, everything had to be done in person via, meeting at events or phone calls, right? It was a very different world. In the space we live in now, at some point, you're going to want a job. Someone you know is going to want a job. You're going to have a difficult question that you need help with related to clinical trials or related to DUAs or something that you're not an expert in. And that's the moment in which you want to leverage your network. When you have, so LinkedIn is a really great opportunity for you to be able to maintain some of these relationships with minimal effort. So when you have an active LinkedIn profile, people see you around all the time. So even if you don't talk to each other every day, your face is still in someone's periphery and they feel like they know you. And why that becomes important, especially when it comes to applying for jobs, is that when you are applying for a job, essentially you are selling yourself. And we're going to come back to that in a minute because I don't actually believe that's the only context in which this happens, but let's just use that for this moment, where you are saying, I am marketing myself to this company. I want them to hire me because I want this job. And when you are applying to a job that another like 70 people are applying to, what is going to set you apart? And now for many of us, we're trying to be set apart by our resume and our skills and so on and so forth. And that is part of it. The other part of it is the psychological part, is creating that familiarity. Now, many people have heard the statistic that says in order for someone to buy a product, they have to have seen that product 7 times. So in order for any marketer to be able to sell you a product, so if I decided I want to sell you this pen, for me to sell you this pen, I have to have shown you this pen and my branding. So not just any pen, this pen the value of my pens at least 7 times. That was true up until about 5 years ago, where a study was done and it shows that the new number is 15. So, in order for someone, for your branding, you as a human being, to be able to penetrate the bubble of constant information that is being thrown at the people around you, you need to be relatively visible at least 15 times so that they can connect with you. Oh, yeah, I see Manessa there, right? So when you are using your LinkedIn, what you are essentially doing is creating familiarity. It is the virtual equivalent of seeing people walking down the street, walking in the halls of the organization, where you're like, oh, I see these people all the time, right? It's the same thing, only now you're seeing them on LinkedIn. Not everybody leverages LinkedIn as a resource or as a tool, which means that if you are leveraging it, then you're going to be so much more visible than anyone else who is looking for a job, because people are going to see you around. Now, what that means is it doesn't just mean that you want to be on LinkedIn. It means you actually have to be using LinkedIn, okay? And what that means is you want to be posting, you want to be sharing other people's content, you want to be commenting on people's content, you want to be adding more people to your contact list as you get to know them in various spaces. You meet somebody at an annual meeting, add them to your list. You meet somebody, at a training session, add them to your list, right? That just becomes sort of like a keychain to collect all of the people in your networking sphere that you may want to connect with later on. So LinkedIn becomes that space for that. Now that you're on it, the key is to make sure that you're being seen. So as we talked about, posting, sharing, commenting, the question that typically pops up is, what do I post about, right? What do I say? What do I share about? That actually, it's really interesting, because I've been teaching this for about a decade now, and I can say that the question is always the same. The answer is always the same. It just depends on the individual person. So for example, I have very passionate opinions about salaries for research administrators, about educating on tactical activities that new RAs may need help with, but they aren't sure where to go to get help, right? I have specific areas that I love to talk about. And then I love crisis cleanup. I love cleaning up portfolios. I love coverage. These are the things I love doing. So I talk about those things. If I see a post on LinkedIn that is all about bridging gaps between the younger generation, crisis cleanup, tools for how to manage your portfolio, anything to make your life easier, efficiency, these are the things I like to talk about. So that's what I'm going to share. You have to figure out what you like to talk about. So the question becomes, what is it that you really enjoy about research administration? So let's say, for example, you love pre-award. You love pre-award more than anything. Then in that case, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking for articles about pre-award. You're going to be, if you discover a cool, nifty way of doing an application in the American Heart Association, you're like, oh, I had no idea this was a thing. You're going to make a post about that on LinkedIn and say, anyone who's applying to American Heart, did you know, blah, blah, blah. You're sharing stuff related to the things you care about related to research administration and things that you find helpful. You're not trying to impress anybody. You're not trying to say, oh God, what will they think of me? That kind of thing. This is not about how it is being received, because that's always one of the biggest questions, is like, what if they don't like it? What if people say bad things and so on? The chances of that happening are very, very low. And the expression of yourself on LinkedIn is not about how it is received as much as it's about you making sure that you're being visible out there. What I have found helps me through that anxious space is I never post when I write it. So I always create the post and schedule it out, and create the post and schedule it out. And I tell myself, and I've never done this, but I tell myself, I can undo it. I can delete it. I can unschedule it. I'm just going to schedule it now because I've written it, and then I'll go back and deal with it later. And then I never go back and deal with it later, but it gives me that feeling of safety and security that, oh my God, I can undo this, right? I can undo it. So I typically have my posts scheduled out because it helps me with my anxiety. And it doesn't have to be posted the exact moment of, like in some cases you might be talking about something that is time sensitive, so you need to do that. But in other cases, and most likely, you're not going to need to deal with that. Let me just look to see here. Okay. So, oh my God, I have 59 subscribers. I got 2 subscribers overnight. That's amazing. Okay. So, hold on. Where's my notes? Okay. Now, someone asked a question in the session about your bosses, right? So you're on your LinkedIn and your boss is seeing you on LinkedIn, and they're like, What is happening here? Are you looking for another job? Right? What's going on? The thing that I want to sort of like start with is that the idea that someone would only use LinkedIn when they are getting or looking for a job is outdated. There was a time where LinkedIn was only for that purpose, but now it is a place where people share things that are relevant to them in the workspace, related to their particular activities, um, and have conversations around topic specific ideas that are relevant to them. Yes, you also use it to look for jobs. You also use it to demonstrate your expertise. We do it for all of those things as well, but that is not the only reason that it exists. It also exists to create and develop stronger networks and relationships and to find people who have similar views and opinions uh, related to areas that you want to engage with, people with common views and opinions. And it has the ability to find people who have different views and opinions so that you can be challenged and grow. So LinkedIn is a very wide spectrum of uses, but it is absolutely true that your boss is going to see it and be like, oh, you're looking for a job. Now, that's their problem. Let's just be real here. That is their problem. That is the fact that they have not yet reached the current understanding of LinkedIn, and that's really more about education. What I recommend is to be very vocal about your use of LinkedIn and talking about how it is helping you find tools and resources, how it is helping you grow your network and make more friends. God, my throat is all. Let's try that again. It's like a pollen in my throat. We may have a few minutes here where I'm trying to survive. Um, what was I saying? I recommend sharing with your sharing very vocally how you are using LinkedIn and how it is helping you, right? Oh, I found this great resource. So I found this link, training session to Giltrans, a link to the Giltrans training session for the uniform guidance. Like there's a lot of really good stuff on LinkedIn that you're not going to find anywhere else that keeps you on the pulse of research administration. Be very vocal about how you're using it for that, and then it'll be very apparent to your boss that one, you're not trying to hide anything, and two, that it has more value than simply beyond what can you do for me, where can I go get a job, and so on and so forth. And hopefully it will help to expand their horizons in terms of how they interact and engage with LinkedIn and in management in general. Okay, so now if you are thinking about leveraging it for a job, the thing to think about is that you want to be talking about the things that you want a job for. So, for example, if you are really all about pre award and you're talking about compliance all the time, you're going to have a harder time getting people to associate you with pre award simply because you're talking about compliance and people will associate you with what you talk about. So, as you are determining what it is that you post, and that doesn't mean you can't post about compliance. I just mean that like when you post more about pre award. Because what you're really trying to do is share the things that you love so that when someone sees it, they're like, oh, Manessa loves pre-award. I have a pre-award position open. I wonder if Manessa's looking for a job, right? Now, I may have talked about compliance and post-award too, but like I'm always going, I love crisis cleanup. I love crisis cleanup. I love crisis cleanup. So people know, yeah, okay, there's many different things Manessa can help with. I could probably hire Manessa as a research administrator, absolutely, to just do full spectrum research administration work, absolutely. But Manessa really gets jazzed up about cleanup and crisis work. So like if something pops up for that, where someone's like, I don't even know, where do we find someone to help us with this portfolio that hasn't been looked at in, 6 years? Da-da-da! Don't worry, Manessa's got you, right? But the only reason you know that is because I constantly talk about how the messier the portfolio is, the more I like working in it. If I didn't talk about that at all, then when that opportunity arises, no one would think of me. So that's really what you're actually trying to do, because it's really difficult. And this is the case regardless of what you're trying to do, whether it's on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok, it doesn't matter. It is almost impossible for an individual human being to be able to generate the kind of interest that they're looking for on their own in their entire, on their platform. They need to get other people to understand what it is they offer as well, so that those other people can say to their friends, you need to go watch Vanessa, you need to call Jackie, you need to call Syra, whatever it is. But those are the people that they basically say, this is the person who can help you solve your problem. Because if you think about it, your larger network is going to have a larger reach in terms of what it is, in terms of access to opportunities. And then as long as they know what it is that you're looking for, right? Um, they now know how to leverage you. Now, if you take a look at, and I'm just going to share my LinkedIn here. So if you take a look at my LinkedIn, oh, this isn't my LinkedIn. We're looking for my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn. Okay. So if you look at my LinkedIn here, right? You'll notice at the very top, I have crisis management expert and workforce transformation specialist. It's because when people see me, I want them to immediately know that that's what it is that I do, right? Research administration, absolutely, but this is the area that I specialize in. So when you think about this top 3 lines over here for your LinkedIn, make sure, and as I'm looking at this, I'm like, you know what? I just realized I don't have the word research administrator in there anywhere. I need to add that in there. So I need to go in and update and make it a little clearer, so it's clear that I'm a crisis management expert and workforce transformation specialist in research administration, right? But it immediately tells people this is what I'm about. So you're going to want to use that element right there to put in sort of like your headline, your summary, so that when people see your profile, they immediately have an understanding of what it is that you offer. And why they might want to engage with you. And in some cases, it might just be, let's hang out and talk about this particular topic that you like to nerd out about. In other cases, it might be, I have a job for you. In other cases, it might be, I have a question, I need help because I don't understand DUAs, and you just did a training that I noticed that you did on, like Melissa Marr is doing on DUAs, and if I have questions, now I know that she's my expert that I can go to. So that's, as you're thinking about LinkedIn, that is really the key element of, I keep looking at that camera when we're actually right here. That is really the key element, is to ensure that you're really telegraphing to other people what it is that you are excited about. Now, going back to the earlier thing, we'll wrap up on this, where we talked about how when you go in to the, let me find my camera, just camera. We talked earlier about how you're going in for a job, right? And now, oh, this is a job, I want this job. Now, that is the way that it has been structured historically, to keep us in a position where it's like you feel like the jobs are scarce and you have to fight for them, right? And so it's like, it puts us in a feeling of very, almost like supplication and a lot of anxiety that I may not get X job. What having an active and vibrant LinkedIn profile does is it actually builds your confidence a lot to help you to see the asset that you really are. Because the challenge that exists right now in all workplaces, but we're going to talk specifically about research administration right now, is that the perspective that the job is the thing that we need, which, yes, we all need to make money, we all need to pay our bills and so on, is a fallacy. The truth is that job, they desperately need us. Okay. So yes, it's a symbiotic relationship, but the way the power structure has been set up for the last, however many years, like decades and decades and decades, it's, I'm a supplicant to the job that you have, and I'm going to have to prove myself to you that I'm the one you want, right? The actual thing that's happening is they are desperate for someone to do this work, and we have the skill sets. They have to prove to us that this is the job we want. We can know this, but imposter syndrome is real. Lack of self-esteem is real. I've been through all of this, where even saying these words out loud, I recognize that in practice, it is harder than just saying the words. That is where the LinkedIn comes in, because the LinkedIn tool is a very powerful mechanism by which to increase your platform, which immediately increases your value on the optical value. Okay. Because obviously, in my worldview, you have inherent value simply by existing. However, what we're talking about specifically right now is the optical value vis-a-vis research administrative positions. And so to increase that, you want to be more active on LinkedIn, because that demonstrates, one, confidence, because it takes a lot of confidence to be active on LinkedIn. And then two, it demonstrates your expertise to where when somebody does get your job application, they already know who you are. They already know, they can look on your LinkedIn and see what it is that you are jazzed about. But then three, you've already established yourself as someone who can command a higher salary going in. And as we all know, it is really critical to start out your position at any organization with as high of a salary as you can possibly get, because you're going to be restricted by your increases in the future by 1 or 2% based off of whatever the cost of living increase is at your organization, if they have one at all. And so establishing that high salary right at the outset is critical. To do that, you're going to want to have a platform that you can use to say, listen, you are lucky that I'm applying for your job, and that comes from the LinkedIn. Okay. We have done all the things we set out to do today. We recorded our boundaries intro, thank God, because I've been meaning to do that for weeks. We talked about LinkedIn. We talked briefly about boundaries, and we set up the camera scene so that it's absolutely perfect and looks adorable for intent tomorrow. So we are good to go. I had a wonderful morning with you today, spontaneously going live just to test these things out. I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous rest of your weekend, and then I will see you on Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Intent. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, rest of your weekend. Take care. Look at Miss 30 minutes